Well, let's go ahead and just get started and welcome everybody.
Great. I guess we can jump to GPC short
Sure.
and sweet, because we haven't had the administrative session yet. So
Yeah.
right now, the only item that we have in draft is the notification requirements for rent increases and lease terminations.
And just for everybody who's not familiar, we have an agenda item on tomorrow on this Thursday's GPC agenda to calendar out the rest of the quarter for GPC. And there's backup already there for that lists out what's available and then kind of a draft schedule. And of course, we'll have an opportunity to move that around and discuss adding or subtracting from it at the meeting tomorrow. But until then, this is the only item for the next GPC.
Okay. Our next agenda is for Thursday, February 2nd. And first item is approval of minutes from January 5th, both meetings on the 5th. And then some appointments to City Commission advisory boards and committees. And there's a perpetual easement between Northeast 26th Terrace and Southeast 26th Terrace.
If I might, Mr. Mayor, this is the item that I referred to earlier today relative to a follow-up to the death of the young boy in that Home Park area.
Okay,
This is one of the fixes or one of the solutions.
gotcha. So that's our opportunity to install. If you scroll back just a little bit there you go. It allows us to put traffic signals and speed bumps and such in that crosswalk, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Essentially
Very
a mid-block crossing. There's not a crossing there currently?
Correct.
Phil, do you have any more detail? Because I know you were working with Transportation, Public Works, and Commissioner Duncan Walker when this was getting discussed.
Yeah, this is, my understanding is this is going to be a flashing beacon and reduction in speed limit and several other things. This particular item is just to give them the easement to do all the improvements.
Gotcha. Okay.
This all ties into that East University, West University Avenue corridor study.
Right.
Okay. The next item is the perpetual easement between Northwest 13th Street and Northwest 23rd Avenue. Then we have an authorization of an amendment to a task assignment under a professional architectural and engineering consulting services continuing services agreement.
May I ask that this item be retitled so that it is more germane to what we're really doing? And I would suggest that we retitle it amendment to a task assignment for Jones, Edmonds and Associates, Inc. And that'll cover what we're actually asking the board to review and approve. So
That works for me.
it's actually task assignment amendment for Jones, Edmonds and Associates, Inc. If we could retitle it that, I think it's just clearer.
Looks like Commissioner Brooks' hand is up.
Yeah, I just kind of missed the 2023-60 on perpetual easement. Can when that comes up, can we just talk about what is perpetual easement? I'm pretty good with roadways and sidewalks, pedestrian. I just don't know what it is, so it'll be helpful if someone provides that brief explanation when it's agenda. That'll be helpful.
You know what? I'm actually going to ask if we can move that onto the regular agenda, because it is kind of in itself, it's not a big deal, but it's a big deal in the larger context of that overall redesign of University Avenue, and it addresses a very specific area for a very specific reason.
Is that 59 and 60, Mr. Mayor, or just 60? Which
59.
59. Okay. Commissioner Book was referring to 60 specifically, so
Oh, gotcha. Okay.
should we move them both to the consent? Is that the suggestion? I'm not sure.
Let's do that. I mean, I don't think there's a tremendously long discussion about either. But I think I think for informational purposes and with a relatively, knocks on wood, light agenda, I think it's useful for educational purposes and for the community's purposes to go ahead and let's have that conversation about both of them.
Yeah, the term is about 2 intersections and traffic safety. So I think that'd be a good idea.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Mr. Eastman, you had a question?
Yeah, well, it was really about the next one, but for this one, so you told us what 59 was. Is 60 something similar as an easement for street improvements for pedestrian safety, or is that a different need for that easement?
60 is just my understanding is just the reconstruction of the traffic signal at 23rd and 13th. I don't know what other improvements the DOT has planned, but we'll make sure we have them for the meeting.
Okay, but if I understood you, Mayor Ward, you wanted that so that we could educate the community more on the work that's being done on East University, which it sounds like 60 may not entail that. Yeah, I'm happy to have it out for the consent agenda. I just want to make sure that that's what we were thinking.
Yeah, so there are different things. They're a similar thing for different purposes.
Right.
But I think it's a worthwhile conversation to have on both, because at some point there'll be questions about why are they installing a new traffic signal there, and this is our opportunity to lay the groundwork for that and to let folks know what's going on.
All right.
Sometimes having things on the regular agenda is a good communications tool.
For sure. And so on the next point, on the authorizations for Jones Edmonds, it was pretty clear in the agenda why that removal of the old design. What are you asking us to move it to? What is this new project that you're moving it to?
I really can't answer that. I would have to get with Roxy and get more specific. So I'll circle back with you on that with Roxy.
Okay.
Okay, the next item is 2023-32 Heartwood Dreams to Reality Construction Contract Amendments.
This one we had on last time, Mr. Mayor. We pulled it because I wanted to be sure that the 649,000 was already laid out in the Heartwood budget, and it is. It doesn't require a budget amendment, but this helps us to move the Dreams to Reality construction projects along. So this is an amendment to that. Phil, obviously, it's one item that you've been following. So if you want to supplement what I said.
You covered it perfectly. Just the cost of construction has gone up, so we got to pay for it.
Yep.
And then Mayor Harvey L. Ward Jr., the Bloomberg Philanthropies Letter of Support.
And by the way, that on the recommendation there, this is not a letter of support for Bloomberg Philanthropies. It's a letter of support for UF College of the Arts grant application to Bloomberg Philanthropies. It's $1 million grant, and this doesn't commit us to anything. It's they asked me to write a letter of support for a grant that we may in the long run benefit from. This doesn't commit anybody to anything. It just gives them the opportunity to move that grant application forward.
Right. I asked Roxy and her staff to just take a look at the substance of it, just to make sure that there wasn't anything that was obligating the city long term.
Right. And by the way, they told me they were going to reach out to your office. So hopefully they have done or will do that soon.
Yes, sir.
If it's not obligating the city, is it required that the whole commission vote on? I don't know what the powers of the mayor are, but it seems like if it's just a letter of support, that would be something that could just be done administratively and the mayor could sign it.
I think generally speaking, it is within my authority to do that. But I think it's also, again, worth having the information out there that we're adjacent to support for this this grant proposal.
Okay. The next item in the morning is the Gainesville Police Department fourth quarter update. And then we'll add in those two items unless there's an objection between for 2023 59 and 60 in the morning.
I think that's fine. I would, I'm a little cautious of that. Sometimes our GPD updates, we always very optimistically think, oh, that won't take much time. But we have questions about it because there's always a tremendous amount of detail there. Let's wait and see what's happening at the end of the agenda in the evening. I think it might be useful to put those at the end.
So, Mr. Mayor, if I might, again, on the titling of this, because we kind of struggle with this when it's come up on the agenda. This is the Gainesville Police Department fiscal year 2023 first quarter update.
Right. Yeah, I was going to ask
For
about that.
October, November, December. So those are the first 3 months of our fiscal year. So if we could say Gainesville Police Department fiscal year 2023 first quarter update as the title.
Yeah. And
How
you know,
thick
maybe
is the
that's not
packet?
in 20 minutes, but there may be lots of conversation.
Yeah, I was just curious, how thick is the packet of information they typically provide from an agenda attachment perspective?
They have about 20 slides. I've asked Chief Scott to try to cut it down or to summarize the presentation of the slides, but he's got about 20 slides, but the slides are very wordy. And so he can move through them pretty quickly, hopefully.
Does he need remedial training and how to make the slides a little more user-friendly?
Oh, no comment.
I'm happy to. Yeah. I was just, and they normally provide that probably within the next 24 to 48 hours, Madam Clerk, so that it's an attachment that people can look at in advance.
This item was ready. I know you asked the clerk. This item is ready, but he was scheduled to do this not next week, but on a different agenda, if I'm not mistaken. And so this, as of today, being placed on the agenda for February 2nd. So
Okay.
it's running late in terms of backup, but it'll be coming to Miss Gainey very soon, tomorrow. Because it wasn't.
I'm happy to make a phone call if I have them, just related to PPT types of presentation, information, and just leave it there.
Thank you, Commissioner.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. The next item is the amending the future land use map from urban mixed use high to plan use districts for that particular PB. Then there's an ordinance revising the civil citation penalties.
Hang on, that one, let me ask staff to be specific about where that is.
Which one is that, Commissioner? The
536.
530, that's the CA Ventures
That's what I thought.
item.
Yeah. So that's the 2nd Avenue and Southwest 10th Street.
Yes.
Yeah.
And it's actually married up, joined up with another item, which is, I think, 2022-537 on page 7.
Yes.
Those are two companion items.
Can we
Relative to CA Ventures.
can we go ahead and pack those together so they're one after the other?
I think the other one is on first reading and it would disturb the order of the agenda.
Okay. Okay, go ahead.
Next item is the second reading of an ordinance revising civil citation penalties for and code signs and means. And then the first reading of the residential rental unit permit program. And then the first reading of the ordinance specifying the standards and duties of the city internal auditor.
I'd like to speak on that. This is Brecca. This item is coming before, is on the agenda. This is where we are pulling information from a resolution that we already had. And we're pulling that information, just our standards that we follow, like the yellow book, red book that are from GAGAS and from the Institute of Internal Auditors, bringing in that information over into the ordinance is what we're doing because it requires this part of the charter. Of course, we know we don't do a lot of charter, updates. So of course, it would be through through ordinance, adding it to the code of ordinance is what this is. So if anyone have any questions, feel free to contact me. Thank you.
We have another item, request to vacate a right-of-way. And then the rezoning from urban transit zone U9 to planned development.
That's the CA Venture Zone.
Right.
And then a proclamation in the evening for Black History Month.
And we will have a couple of more proclamations, I think at least one more coming through for domestic violence, or not domestic, but Survivors of Gun Violence Week. And then we'll have those other two items in the evening.
Can I ask about one more item? There, Mr. Mayor.
Yeah, sure.
The I can't remember. Are we re-adding tomorrow? You and I had some back and forth about the community input. Was that coming up tomorrow? If not, I'd like to put it on this agenda for the February 2nd. And it, as long as it's in the later session, that would be good. But I just wasn't sure about tomorrow.
So it's not on tomorrow because we don't have the research that we requested back. It's on the calendar for the agenda item tomorrow at GPC to calendar out the rest of the quarter for GPCs. It's listed there as coming back on the 9th. Now that's not in stone yet because I haven't voted on it, but which is why I didn't respond to your email, by the way, because it's something we vote on. And it's my understanding is that we'll have the research report back for the additional items that we talked about at the retreat in time for the 9th.
We have quite a bit already back. My intent was to put it on the February 2nd agenda if we weren't going to discuss it tomorrow, and see and pretty much start to finalize and finish up if there's recommendations to come out of there. That's all once we have it.
So I'm very interested in having a conversation about the particular item that we referred for research and to see what other cities do with that particular item. Otherwise, we're talking about the same stuff that we've talked about many times before. I only want to do this once.
No, I'm not sure. I would say that we should put it on the February 2nd agenda and see what, basically compile what we had there since we were talking about in December.
We're going to leave out a piece of research if we do that.
Is that something that the policy oversight coordinator has? I'm not sure what we're talking about.
Yes, we asked them to look in, we asked that department at the retreat to bring back research on how other cities handle the potential of having one party who is bringing who represents a group of people, how they might have a little more time to make a prepared presentation and how we might judge the opportunity to do that. And
Yeah, okay, so
I thought that was an interesting idea to look into. So I don't want to clip that off. And I also don't want to have, an additional highly charged conversation again about it, a month or two later.
yeah, I think sooner is better than later. And actually, anytime you have charged conversations, you deal with them, kind of meet them head on, and then move forward. That piece of the research, though, that's just one specific aspect. And so now I understand that's just specific to whether you have one person speak on behalf of others. Is that what the research project is?
Essentially, yes.
Okay.
And experience tells me that this doesn't go away when we have one highly charged conversation about it and meet it head on.
Maybe not.
I've been watching a lot of these meetings.
Yeah, maybe not. That won't be, in my estimation. That's never a reason not to have the conversation. So we probably disagree a little bit on this, but if we're not going to discuss it tomorrow, then I would like it added on the February 2nd City Commission, one of the latter sessions, either the afternoon or the evening if we make it to the evening. It doesn't
I'm
matter
going
to
to say
me.
it now. I will vote against that agenda. And I will not move to approve that agenda or vote for it because the research isn't ready. Now, someone who has been here much longer than 2 weeks, I can tell you, you want to have one conversation, have all of the information ready so that everyone talking about all the rule changes can have one meeting on it. But I'm just a woman who has a lot of more years of experience here, so your estimation is probably more accurate, Commissioner Book.
I respect that. I respect anyone's opinion. It's serve time, not serve time, the different experiences that we bring to the table, and that's okay. So what I would say is, let's put it on the February 2nd agenda. Vote to have it or not, and that's okay.
So Ed, help me understand why it's so important that we do this as quickly as possible. What has changed about what we're looking at? What is different?
So I think the question as quickly as possible is not an accurate answer or question. I think we started in December, and in December we talked about putting it on for written remarks. So I did that. I deferred to the experience of those folks who have served before me, because as Commissioner Sacco has just put it, I've been on for days, right? Not just weeks, but days, not very long. So process is pretty important. On the other hand, once we put it on, I defer to the experience to get the written. We have a lot of written information, notwithstanding one particular aspect of can one person speak for many. And obviously, we can't discuss the issue. I'll just say community input is multifaceted. It is not merely how somebody reacts at the dais, nor is it necessarily how somebody reacts, when we're coming and going or on the phone and email. It's the whole aspect of how does the city provide a welcoming atmosphere for citizens, good, bad, or indifferent. And I thought that's kind of important for us to put that out there as a new body of 7, even though 4 have served and 3 are new. It's not a matter of trying to do something quickly or inefficiently. It's a matter of actually trying to be timely in our response to basically improve anything, if there's anything that we want to improve. I've read a whole lot of the emails that have come in thus far, and I'm certain they're being compiled really well by the clerk. But in this particular point is, once I see them, then it helps to crystallize, are there any particular areas of improvement, or are there not? I assume nothing, but merely giving people the opportunity sometimes to provide input in the way that they actually provide that, or the welcoming atmosphere, is pretty critical to us. That's a long-winded way to say I'm pretty firm. I think it's important, and we have plenty. And if we have one aspect of research that is still holding, perhaps we can get that one piece. It's probably a matter of a few phone calls. And are there other entities or municipalities that are having people speak in behalf of others? I do believe that's a really good piece, Mr. Mayor, and an interesting piece, but it shouldn't hold up everything else.
So I'm going to tell you that is the only piece that is different information that hasn't been before this commission multiple times. It's the only new piece of information. I am, unless there is other folks have access to other things that are not coming to me, I'm not seeing new information come through, except for this thing that we've asked for. And
I think some of the information that was provided in the January 13th retreat was in the front of one of the tabs, was kind of a preliminary piece of information. There were a couple ideas in my limited tenure, and looking back at the discussions that have happened in 2019 and 2020 and even late 2022 that did appear different, but I can't say that I compared each item against every time that something might have come up.
so we're going to have more information available to us by waiting an additional 7 days. There's no deadline. And I would rather have more information to work with. We're going to do this on February 9th.
Forgive me, I haven't been even through a GPC meeting yet, but the purpose of the GPC meeting is to sort of have in-depth conversations about stuff, right? It's a little more informal. It's a little more where, I think in previous GPC meetings, I've even as a person sat down and spoken, or that might've been the subcommittees. I can't recall, but I mean, this seems like the kind of thing where we would want to put it not on a city commission meeting, which is a much more formal meeting with specific things in it, and kind of have it be more open and kind of have a discussion about it, which seems more like GPC. But as I said, I haven't actually been through one of those before. But February 2nd is a formal city commission meeting. February 9th is GPC, which seems like a better place for that to go. But I defer to the folks
I
who
actually
do.
agree with that. That's actually what I thought we had agreed on. Well, I agree completely with Commissioner Eastman, is that the more appropriate place would probably be GPC, but you pushed that back to February 9th. And I guess now I'm learning that the reason for that was that you had an additional piece, a piece of the puzzle, I guess would be a way to say it, that you were hopeful to have for the next GPC.
Right.
Is that accurate?
That is part of it. Another part of it is that we plan GPCs out months in advance. And that's what we're doing tomorrow, is having the administrative session for the following quarter.
That's also what we did at the agenda meeting on December 30th, and the very first meeting in January, is we talked about that very thing. So that's why I thought it would be on tomorrow. I thought that is what we had agreed.
Okay. So
we planned it out in advance.
I have multiple things that I want us to talk about at GPC as one of 7 people. And that's generally the way we do it. We have these administrative meetings so that we can plan it out looking forward for things that are not emergencies. If something's an emergency, we can make room for it. And not even emergency, if it's time sensitive, if there's a date on it, then sometimes we make changes and sometimes we insert things earlier. This is a larger discussion that traditionally we would calendar out and have a discussion at the meeting tomorrow where we agenda things out for the quarter for GPC. That's how our system has worked. And I'm not understanding what the deadline is on this one that would make us do it earlier in the system.
The deadline for me was, I thought we'd actually agreed it was on the GPC tomorrow. So that made it very simple. I thought that at the beginning of the month, we agreed on that. And once we did that, that's what I kind of, once I see what an effort is pushed forward to, that's when we plan for. So that was, from my standpoint, was simply, it's been calendared, it's gone through the process, and it was done correctly. And discussed actually right in a public meeting. I thought it was going to be on. So I was actually surprised that it was not on there.
So
that was it for
I'll
me.
answer you in a second, Commissioner Willits. So my recollection, and I can go back and watch, was that we talked about doing it at a future GPC meeting. I don't recall us saying we're going to do it on January 26th. Commissioner Willits, you had a comment?
Yeah, I think, Commissioner Book, I understand the idea of bringing it up, of us discussing it, because we're at the beginning of the commission together, all of us. Though I will say I do like the idea of it going before GPC in that February 9th, because it also gives us an opportunity. I had not yet taken the opportunity to ask some people I know who who frequently speak before the commission or who watch it, about their impressions. Because even when we sought out comment from the community before our retreat, what we know is the likeliest people are going to be the people who jump on it immediately. Some people need a personal invitation to give, some feedback. And so I can think off the top of my head, 4 or 5 people who I'd love to ask and say, you watch meetings, or you've been to meetings, or you speak, and to give a little feedback. So I know that I personally want a little more feedback before we get into this conversation. I don't want to hear from just the people who have always been to every single meeting, because what I gather is that that we do not hear from the people who already think it's not welcoming, and that's why they don't give us feedback. They don't communicate to us. The ones who currently give feedback perhaps want the ability to give even more feedback in communication, but it's the people we don't hear from that I'm kind of most concerned about when we talk about community feedback to the commission. It's not the people that I already know by name, face, email address, probably what they did as a child, what they did as an adult, where they live, where they eat. I already know those things about the people who give the most feedback. I know that for me, I want to know the people who don't give feedback, where they are, who they are, and how we engage them in the process.
Yeah, that's fair. The reality is this is not about any particular people coming before one time, 10 times, or 200 times. This is about in general, with a new body coming and knowing all the conflict that occurred the last couple of years. Will we have 1, 2, 3, and 4 years of time where not only will we have less conflict at the dais, for example, but we'll also have less conflict with the people that come before us. And for those that we do have conflict with, that's okay. Nobody, and we should all have thick skin because nothing's personal there. So it wasn't specific or germane to any particular people. I actually like what you said, Commissioner Willits, and because I'm mindful that you have many, many city staff, and this agenda review would have probably been over already, if not for the fact that I'm kind of pushing the issue. I'll say that let's put on the February 9th GPC. It will be let's have a robust discussion about it. And I appreciate what you said, Commissioner Willits, and the fact that you're going to get, it's not just the one research item that you have, Mr. Mayor. It's that you all may not have reached out to people that you just haven't actively done because we've been in service for a few weeks. So I'll defer to that. I'm pretty hardcore about getting it finished, and it's not a do it quickly and inefficiently. It's let's get it done because it's the way that we interact with the public, 1, 2, or 200 people, and we're civil about it. So how does that sound, Mr. Mayor?
I think that's great, and I think that I appreciate you being willing to move on that, and I think you're going to find that in the long run, it gives us a better product.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Mayor, if I may, I want to pull up the screen one more time because it has brought to my attention that I didn't actually read this item in, even though it was on the screen. This last item on consent is the approval of the employment contracts for the manager, the attorney, the equity and inclusion director, and the general manager of the utility. So I just wanted to be sure that I pointed that out, that it is there.
Right. And thank you for pointing that out. We will have, traditionally what we do is attach the unexecuted contracts to the backup. My hope is that we will have agreement and have those contracts written. They won't have signatures on them yet, and we will have those ready for everyone to review. And then traditionally, we have done that under on the consent agenda, and we put them all under one item. And obviously, if we have concerns about that, that can be changed. But for consistency's sake, we just put them all into that singular item this time. Okay.
Commissioner Eastman has.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, I just wanted to, so is this the final vote on the acceptance of the charter officers at this point? Like once we approve what you have accepted? I have no idea what will be negotiated in there, and I can't imagine I'm going to have very strong feelings, but the way that this was done the first time, where we just kind of did it quickly, it felt like there wasn't a whole lot of, I don't know, just a definitive vote that said that we're, moving forward with this, or like time to put it out there. I don't know. I'm not necessarily advocating to pull it off of the consent agenda, but it might be nice for us to have something that's on the official business agenda that we could vote on, just to, have it be discussed and then move that forward. But you said in the past it had been a consent agenda item, just in the backup.
My recollection is that we consistently do it on consent, because we passed a motion to negotiate these, and traditionally that is where we have the discussion.
All right. Well, I guess once those are there, we can vote. Because it's consent agenda. So I guess if anyone wants to pull it off of the consent agenda, that would go on the business agenda at that point.
Correct. If we pull it, we pull it.
All right.
Yep.
I'm in agreement with that sentiment.
Okay. Brian, do you still have your hand up, or is it?
It's
Okay.
down.
Okay, Phil?
Mr. Mayor, if everyone's finished, I want to go back to Commissioner Eastman's question about item 2023-61, authorization of the amendment. I wanted to make sure staff understood his question on that item.
Would you like me to reiterate?
Yeah,
I was just curious, what this was. It's clear what the money is being diverted from, or what the focus of that contract is. I was curious what project it is moving toward, because it has a project name on it, but not as clear of a, I guess, location. You see here, the WSPP multi-use Sweetwater branch. Oh, here we go. Southeast Williston Road to Sweetwater Branch Creek. That's where it's being moved. That's where it's being moved to. That is the new project that they'll be working on.
yes, and this was a project, it was a joint project between GRU and Wild Spaces Public Places, but GRU no longer needs the project. So I'll get with Roxy and make sure we answer your question.
Okay.
All right, anything else? Okay, we've got agendas. Thanks, y'all.